Hi, everybody. It's Rabbi Grover here with two very special people who were the Beth Tikva Shinshinim in, let me get the year right, 2016, 2018, 2019. Nachon?
One earlier.
No.
17, 18.
Oh, 2017, 2018.
Exactly.
Ronny and Noam. Did I get your names right? Great.
You did.
Come on, I'm joking. I still remember you
We
guys.
thought you'd remember.
Of course. So this is a series that we're going to be doing over the next few weeks, where we get an update from our Shinshinim about their lives and about what life is like in Israel right now. This is a time where I think a lot of us feel disconnected from Israel. I heard this morning Israel shut down Ben Gurion Airport. Crazy. Nobody leaves. Nobody comes in. And that's very hard for us in Toronto because we're a community that's always been strongly connected to Zionism and to Israel. And it's helping, I think, to bring, if we can't get Israel, we can get Israelis to help us feel a little bit closer to what's going on in the country. So you can still be good shlichim, good emissaries, even after the program is done and even through Zoom. So why don't we start with you, Ronny? Tell us a bit about what you've been doing since you got back from Toronto, and in terms of your service in the Army, talk a bit about your personal life, and then you know him, and then I'll follow up from there, okay?
Sure.
Sure. Well, the first thing you get when you come back home is that heat wave coming back from Natbag, and that never leaves the second you come back. So that's what it's been like. I heard, though, it hasn't been snowing in Toronto, so it hasn't been snowing here either. I've been in the Army pretty much ever since we got back. I'm in for 2 years and 8 months, and I'm through with a bit more than 2 years for now. I'm in the Air Force. I'm a pilot simulator instructor, which means that I work with pilots in training and instruct them on a plane called Efoni. It's a PT-6 Texan airplane. It's here behind me. It's a very interesting job.
Show us what it looks like, the plane.
Do you see the poster?
Yeah. It's a propeller plane. It's not a jet.
It is. It's a training plane, so it's not.
Okay.
And it's
yeah,
really,
I hope
really
the
interesting.
IDF isn't flying planes like those.
No, a bit more
Okay.
technological. It's in the course, in the pilot's course.
Okay.
Which is also very fun because I'm with people my age most of the time. And we instruct them on how to be, the best pilots there is. And this is the first plane that they ever fly, pretty much, by themselves, at least. So you have to.
No, they don't actually fly it. They're flying it in a simulator.
Oh, well, here they do, yeah. If it would be open and not night right now, I would show you guys. I can send you a video.
So those planes actually do exist in real life, yeah. and they fly them just as a training exercise.
Right. They learn how to fly on these.
And is this what you wanted to do? Or did you stumble upon this?
I stumbled and then understood that that's what I wanted to do.
Okay. What is it that you like about being an instructor? You said it's because you're with people your own age.
Right. I think that, first of all, we have a lot of, we hold all of the knowledge. So we are, if there is ever a question, we are the ones to come to. So first of all, it's very interesting and you learn nonstop. But besides that, you give a lot and you teach a lot and you learn from other people and their experience. So it's mostly the working with people. I think that is the interesting part. And also, we are in a technological place, and I like that too. It's great.
Okay, I have a lot of follow-up questions, but let's take a turn with Noam. He's been doing some exciting stuff too. Tell us, Noam, what you've been up to since you're back. And if you have any trouble with English, I'll help.
Okay, yeah, so when I first got back to Israel, heat wave, etc., etc. And then I think 2 weeks later, I started also doing, I came back to my old job, which is basically proofreading math books. I did it for about 3 to 4 months, then I got drafted. I got drafted to the Nachal Brigade, just like Peli did.
Yes.
And I went through this thing called Gibush, which is basically a week-long test, physical and mental test that examines you, and then they let you know if um, they let you know, כאילו, אם אתה עובר אותו, אתה מתקבל ליחידה. So if you
Right.
pass the test, you get to the unit.
Right.
And
Ronny, you had to do that too. Everybody has to do gibush, right?
no, not
No.
everybody. It's a
So why
voluntary
did-
unit.
Oh, it's only in combat units.
Only in combat units you can do this
Got it.
voluntary bush. I mean, you don't have to, but if you do so, there are chances that you might or might not get this job. It's
Right.
harder and more, I would say, more interesting job to do in the army, because our training is a lot longer. It's twice longer, and in the end, you do get and in the end you get to do interesting stuff. So my unit is basically anti-tank field intelligence reconnaissance division. That's like the big name. Oh yeah, I learned it.
Impressive.
Yeah, which is basically
And you're how many years now in that unit?
also 2 years and 2
Okay.
months. Yeah, so basically our job in the army is it's mostly operative when there's war, so we get to go in first, like one day before everyone else, and then basically we sit on the mountain, and then we watch over the destination our brigade has to go, and then we orienteer them. Basically, we tell them where to go, or where there's enemies, etc. And we carry this huge missile on our backs. It's called spike missile. That's a very clever. I don't know, amlach. Very clever.
Help, Ronny.
אמצעי
What's an
לחימה
amla?
מאוד מיוחד.
Okay, it's a very special weapon,
Yeah.
Yes.
and it's designed to blow up a tank.
Yeah, basically. Tang also, a group of people, it's cool stuff.
So there's a very popular series now that a lot of people are watching. I think it was originally, I think it was released this year in Israel on the Yom Kippur War.
Yeah.
Amazing series.
Yeah. So everybody's watching. I think there's a newfound discovery and
It's
appreciation.
the new Fauda.
Like
Thank you.
Fauda.
Yes.
Now.
But
Nice.
more dramatic than Fauda, I think.
Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah.
because it's
I haven't watched it
historically
also.
because it's historically accurate, or
Yeah.
somewhat historically accurate.
Based on true story.
Yeah. And I remember going, where they take you up to that area in the Golan, and you have to watch the old movies, and like it was boring. And if they would have had this,
Right.
I would have been glued to the screen. The new ways of dramatizing what actually happened during the Yom Kippur War with the tanks. It's a newfound appreciation for everything that those tank commanders were able to accomplish. And the Air Force too, Ronny. I mean, they were like supporting the whole time from the air.
Right.
So, Noam, you carry these weapons on your back.
Yeah.
And have you gone out yet into combat missions?
No, I mean,
Okay.
we haven't gone into those parts,
Thankfully.
but we use those weapons to do like other things, because we carry on our backs, like there's this missile launcher, right? That this launcher is also a camera, like a big thermal camera they can watch over like
Right.
6 or 7 kilometers. So when we are on like different missions, when we are when we're in combat,
Waiting for
we're
combat.
doing, yeah, so we take those launchers, and then we we do a lookout over destinations. It's cool also. We get to practice this machine.
And what is your level in the Army? What's your status? You're a commander, you're a lieutenant?
I'm a
Start-
commander. I mean, there are those commanders that chose to do a voluntary course and course Shinshinim, like this officer's course.
Right.
And they signed for more years. I didn't do it. I'm a regular commander. In my unit, we don't. We have this one lieutenant and one sergeant. So the lieutenant is in charge of basically all of the people in his team, like making sure that they're good, they're welfare, etc., etc. And I'm in charge of the logistics, like
Okay.
making sure that their weapons are clean, making sure that their equipment is good and everything. Basically,
So the
being their mom.
leadership role.
Some would say.
And Ronny, what's
Basically their
your,
mommy.
what's your status?
Kind of the same as Noam.
Okay.
I'm commander here of a few girls who go through the training before they can be officially instructors. But I'm also an instructor as everyone else.
So tell me about how, I have a lot of questions for you guys. Let's start with what has changed in Israel with this virus. I know this has been particularly tough on active duty soldiers in Israel, that there's been a couple of times when you were not allowed to leave your base for an extended period of time. So tell us about what it's been like serving in the IDF in a pandemic.
Ronnie, you go first.
I would say the first, luckily, none of us had to change our jobs and our roles like others had to for specific jobs that are now created because of the pandemic.
So what you're saying is the Army has divisions now that are new divisions that are designed to help fight the pandemic. And it was a possibility that you would have to transfer because they were looking for people from all over the Army. And you're saying that's that's you didn't want to serve in.
Well, I really like my job, and luckily it's important enough to keep, so I didn't have to change it.
But I'm sure you have some friends who are working in that part of the Army. So what are they doing? What is the Army's role in fighting the pandemic?
Everything that has to do with background checks once someone is known as positive, and now we have to go through the whole history and understand who he met with, who needs to go into quarantine.
Tracing, right.
Exactly. Everything that has to do with vaccinations now, which is new, and I'm getting my vaccine tomorrow.
Wow.
Today.
You had yours today, Noam?
Yeah, this morning.
Oh, Mazel Tov.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we in North America are, very envious of how quickly Israel has gotten these vaccinations out and how many people have been inoculated. Oh, and soldiers are getting them before others.
Yeah. Because
after the older part of the population,
right?
Soldiers.
But I mean, it's a lot easier to be a soldier these days because, I mean, going home, we haven't really gone home a lot lately, but I think about it as a more fun way of being in the Army, because you get to experience all of the interactions with other people. I mean, for 2 whole weeks we weren't allowed to leave our area, our platoon's area, so you get to talk with those people a lot and you get to know them a lot.
It forces you to get closer.
Exactly.
It forces you to get closer through a difficult circumstance, right? Everybody is separated from their loved ones for an extended period of time. So both of you were quarantined on base. Was it last year?
No, I mean, in 2020, I was quarantined for a month and a half. That was the longest I've been in the Army for.
Wow. And you, Ronny?
Well, for 3 weeks and then home and then another 3 weeks and stuff like that.
And did your job, Ronny, change during the pandemic? Are you still training pilots, or is anything on hold?
I'm still training.
The Army doesn't stop.
The Army doesn't stop, and especially because it's the pilot's course, and if people will not finish it, there will not be any new pilots. They have to continue. Little but big, things did change, such as instead of communicating face to face, we have to sometimes communicate on the phone, which is more difficult. But overall, the job stayed.
Right. You guys are real essential workers. You're keeping the country functioning and the defense is strong. You can't be unemployed because of a pandemic.
Exactly.
And Noam, did your job change? Like during those weeks on base, were
Quite.
all the practice missions canceled?
No, I mean,
It was life
Shata,
as usual.
when you're serving in Judea and Samaria, so basically every combat soldier, we know we have a routine. Every 4 months we switch our place. I mean, 4 months I can be in Judea and Samaria, and then on the 4 months after that we're in training. So
What does that mean? You're in Judea and Samaria every 4 months.
um
I don't think you're touring.
So, for example, during from July till November, I've been in a base near Nablus, and November till March, I'm in training like these days. I'm training for war in Gaza, and then from March till July again, I'm gonna be in another line in another place called Mevodotan. It's a Jewish town near Hadera. So it's in the B zone. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's in the
Right.
B zone, and we're gonna do our operational work there. We're gonna go on patrols and everything, and we're gonna do arrests.
Even though, because you're telling us, well, what you do is anti-tank stuff, but that's just one small piece, it sounds like, of your training. That's your specialty, but you also have to be doing regular combat missions
exactly
on the ground. So
I mean,
when I asked you, are you doing real combat missions? You are.
Yeah, I mean, we have an imperative mission, which is, the lookout, but also we are regular combat soldiers, so we have to do our things in Judea and Samaria every once in a while. I mean, every time we
Your things.
Yeah, our things. I mean, things have changed because, because of coronavirus, you can't really make arrests. I mean, a big part of
you can't make arrests because you don't want to get too close to
population. Exactly.
Interesting.
Corona in the Palestinian population is a bit high. So, I mean, their infection rate is high. So basically we're afraid to contact them. And if we do, so we try to minimize it as possible. I mean, to take the minimal amount of people to this mission. And the minimal amount is pretty big. I mean, I think the minimal amount is 30 people. That's not only military people. That's also people from the Shabak, people from Agav that join us.
That's right. So you have a bunch of different people from different parts of the army joining together on these missions. And if one person contracts something,
exactly, everyone's infected.
Spread and then travel throughout the army very, very quickly.
That's a big thing in here. I mean, we think twice before we even think of executing a mission.
And are you, Noam, happy with the job you're doing in the army? I asked this to Ronny. Is this what you wanted to do? Is this where you're making a face?
I learned to be happy.
Tell me more. What does that mean? I learned to be happy.
I mean, at first I wasn't really.
It sounds like you're doing some pretty big stuff.
I mean, I am doing big stuff. I mean, generally on paper it sounds good, but I mean, we are going through a lot of hard weeks. I mean, this past week, we had this week long with only 10 hours of sleep. I mean, every 2 days you had 5 hours of sleep, and you carried on your back 65% of your body weight, in addition to your weight. So
right,
it was a hard week, and that's the things we do regularly in training. And you think, come on.
Sometimes you can't help but ask, why am I doing this?
Yeah, exactly. And then
why didn't I choose an easier job?
And then in 2 months, you're going to be in Judea and Samaria, and then you say, okay, that's why I'm doing this stuff, because that's the thing you actually see. I mean, we have this operative mission that, you know, to look out and everything, and that's like the thing we train for the most, and then we don't really get to do it regularly because, you know, we need war to happen, and I don't want that to happen. But
Right.
I mean, when you are in Judea and Samaria, so you actually get to see the work you're doing. I mean, you're physically watching over this Jewish town that, I mean, people can sleep at night, you know? So they sleep at night because of you. So that, I mean, it's a big pat on your shoulder. It's like,
Yeah.
good to go.
So Ronny, can you tell us a bit about, update us about your family? We had a chance to meet your family, some members of your family when you were with us in Toronto. Can you update us about what they're doing and how they're all faring through the pandemic? Is everybody well?
Tfu, everyone is well and healthy. I'm lucky, and I especially now notice it. Almost all of my extended family also live in Zichron, which is where I'm from.
Yes.
Which is very helpful because during the different lockdowns, we were limited on, you know, you can't leave more than whatever 2 kilometers. And some of the times it's actually under 2 kilometers from my house to my family's, which is nice.
So the way they manage the lockdown in Israel is you couldn't go beyond a certain limit from your house.
Depends on what lockdown, which
Okay.
number you're talking about, but sometimes yes.
Okay.
Aerial distance.
We're on number 6 or whatever right now.
Wow.
Everyone is well. Also, luckily, both my parents still somewhat can work from home. So fortunately, everyone is busier than ever, I think. You might know that as well. My little sister is in school, not really school, you know, online, nothing kind of, but
So
trying.
what grade is she in, your sister?
She is in 7th grade.
So 7th grade classes in
Sorry,
Israel are completely online.
During the current lockdown, yes. Between sometimes they do come for like a day or 2 or 3 physically to school, but
Fridays are, you know, rotating.
Yeah, they rotate.
It's a very weird system, in my opinion.
Okay, so sometimes 1 week they're in school, 1 week they're not in school. It's not consistent.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. And my brother did something called the mechina. I don't know, how would you call that?
Mechina is like a preparatory year.
Right. So we did half of
the army, right?
Yes. So we did one with the Jewish agency. He was in Jerusalem for half a year with lots of South Americans. He learned a bit of Spanish. It was very interesting for him. It's a lot of talking about different things and visiting parts of the country and really preparing yourself either for the army or for different things. And he got drafted 2 weeks ago to where I am now, into the pilot school.
Really?
Yeah.
And am I right?
I got to see him from afar.
Wow. And am I correct that that's a huge thing to be drafted into the pilot's course? That is a very high level.
Yeah.
It's a lot of a status, and it's also big.
Sorry, you're breaking up, Ronny, but I think she said, yes, it's a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah.
It's a big deal. Okay.
We'll go through a lot of things to go into that specific job.
Sorry.
You broke up a little bit there, but we got the gist of it. It's a big deal.
We're all very excited. Yes.
Okay, so that's and it's 3 of you, right? 3 kids.
Yeah.
All right. So you're going to be training your brother soon.
Well, I'll be out before he comes to this space, but
okay.
My friends will.
Very good. Noam, what about your family?
You know, they're good. My father is actually working as usual because he's an essential worker. Who knew that accountants are essential workers? But they do. They are. So he's going to job regularly, you know, going home and then again. My mom's actually job came a bit different. She's a teacher. So she's now working from home mostly. And like she's on her computer constantly, like all day long. I mean, you can see her talking to students, and then, I mean, it's very hard because you have to.
What grades does she teach?
3 to 4.
Grades 3 and 4. It's a tough grade to teach online, and she's doing all online instruction
all the time.
Wow.
I mean, Yeah, she's thinking constantly of new ideas. Like, what about what about Jeopardy? What about Wheel of Fortune? Sometimes the school something.
Right.
She thinks about crazy ideas because kids eventually get bored, you know, and like
Of
they
course.
can't look at the screen all day, right? So that's a bit difficult for them also.
Of course.
So she's trying to do this, trying to reinvent herself, basically every 2 weeks or so. And my siblings are, you know, at school. My sister is in seventh grade. My brother is a senior, and actually, he got accepted to the same mechina Noam's brother did. So that's interesting. Yeah.
Wow. So Mechina is not through the Jewish Agency, right? It's a separate program.
Yeah.
Neither of your siblings wanted to follow in your footsteps. Or
My
is it
brother got accepted into Westchester's community.
okay to be a
And
Shinshinim,
then,
Yeah.
and
and
then because
because of the
of COVID,
pandemic? And your
so
brother?
he's kind of following my footsteps, you could say, you know.
Yeah.
Air Force.
Yeah.
But he's always better, you know. He's in the Air Force and in the
Yeah,
Pirates
for
Corps.
sure.
I'm just training him.
Noam, your brother didn't want to do a year of Shinshin service.
He thought about it. He applied. He didn't. He said, "You know what? Maybe I don't want it." And I said, "You know what? Just you should at least sign in. I mean,
Yeah.
you should at least apply." And then he did. And said, "You know what? I didn't get it." I was like, "At least you tried."
Yes.
So yeah. But he wants to be combat also. I told him, please don't. I told him to do something that will not break his back in the future.
Do something easier.
Yeah, physically.
So how do you think do you think your service in Toronto helped you with what you're doing now?
It matured me, I think, in terms of like not seeing home.
Sometimes the Shinshinim
I mean,
say it was a waste of a year, really. I probably should have done it earlier. I'm not
no,
sure.
I don't think it was a
No,
reason.
time's not
Yeah.
Okay, so
relevant.
tell me. You were saying, Noam, how did it help? It's
I
matured
mean,
you?
hmm?
You became more mature?
Some would say, yeah.
I'm kidding.
I mean, in terms of like not seeing home and not seeing my family, I mean, I think I got like sort of immune to that.
Right.
I miss missing my family because also, you know, army is so intense and always busy, so you don't really get the chance to slow down and like talk to your family a lot. But I see people all like most of the times like crying because like you know they miss their family and everything. And when you're going to your third and fourth week in, so it's hard for them to not like see their family all the time. And we get to see people from different backgrounds and everything and different, you know, statuses in the country, and how they cope with that is different.
Very interesting. So you said two things that I find interesting. First of all, that other soldiers found it more difficult than you did during the lockdown because you're used to spending extended periods of time. It's not something new for you to be away from your family for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't think of it that way. So that's really good. And then you said something else, which is confronting people who are different,
I
right?
mean, we have a lot of
A lot
soldiers.
of soldiers come from bubbles.
Yeah, and also lone soldiers they got from America, and you can see their expressions of shock. I mean, when they got to the army, and like a lot of people, like they got through their cultural shock in basic training, and some of them are still do. Some of them are still going through that shock that like they don't understand why things are happening in the army, and then you have to, you know, Americanize the terms for them.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, very important to hear, because Toronto is sort of prides itself on its diversity. And when you guys were in Toronto, you met all kinds of different people. I remember you participated with us in the program. Remember when we brought in that mosque and how you were a little bit
Take it big.
apprehensive about the mosque coming in and meeting the congregants from the mosque? And now you're, working within Muslim communities, and you're able to think of them maybe differently than other soldiers, because you had the year with us of a diverse in a diverse community, learning about different perspectives, and it's made you more open to seeing the humanity in others.
Yeah. In the end,
Wow.
you get to see everyone, like, live and let live. Everyone wants to do their thing, and you have to make sure that you're tolerant enough to let them do so. I mean, we have a lot of soldiers that, some would say they're weird or like, not normal people, but
Yes, we don't say not normal, and
yeah,
we say just
special.
there's all different kinds of people, and what you're
We would say
saying,
special.
yes, even soldiers who have maybe some special needs or odd personality traits, you're more used to working with.
Yeah, I would say odd. I have this one soldier that lives. No, he's actually
Yeah,
odd. He lives on. So his village is called Nimrod. Okay, I don't know if you heard of it, but it's basically four families. Okay, on the top of a mountain, right by the Hermon mountain. Okay, they live four families. That's it. Okay, so he behaves like
a little
he's.
bit different than the Tel Aviv people.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, no.
right.
I mean, he behaves like there's not a single worry in his world. I mean, we tell him like to be 10 a.m. This meeting starts. You have to be here. Like, be on time. Don't be late. He comes like at 11 a.m. with coffee in his hand. He's like, hey, sorry, what did I forget? Like, what did I miss? And everyone's
Right.
angry at him. And then says, what? So I was late. Big deal. And then you have to explain it. No, you were late. And then
What you're saying is when you meet, because of working with associated with all different kids, uh, personalities, this sort of flowed naturally. What about for you, Ronny? How do you think your uh, time as a Shinshinit in Toronto helped or hurt your service in the army?
Well, it definitely didn't hurt. I really agree with what Noam said. It really made me independent, and it especially, I developed more skills to cope with different advantages, whether if it's working for many hours a day, or
Yeah, the
actually
hard work, right? The hard work of being a Shinshinit. I don't think everyone in the synagogue appreciates how insane your schedule becomes some days.
right. So now working from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. isn't the worst thing
Comes
ever.
naturally, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's hard work. And what about what Noam said, Ronnie, about um, the army teaching you to be away from home?
Definitely. Well, fortunately for me, besides the lockdown, so before the corona, I wasn't too much away from home. I came back pretty much every weekend or so. But now that there are lockdowns, it is helpful. It's mostly, the mentality that it's not the worst thing ever and that you can be independent with friends.
So I opened up at the beginning, as saying that the airport is closed now. Ben Gurion is closed.
Right.
We're feeling very disconnected from Israel. What do you want? Be Shinshinim for a second. What should we know, be proud of about Israel today, about how it's doing? What do you want us to be aware of that maybe you see from a closer perspective because you're in the middle of everything? It sounds like, as soldiers, you're playing a really crucial role in Israel's survival and prosperity, even through the pandemic.
That's a good
I
question.
think, I think, well, I'm taking apart the fact that I'm a soldier, and I want to actually answer that with an answer that's a bit more social. Um,
Protest.
so many protests have been happening in Israel pretty much since the virus started for so many reasons. Unfortunately, as a soldier, there are different problems with attending all these protests. So I attended them from home. But I think that although it seems that our country and our people are
When
very
you say
separate.
protests, what are they about?
so many different things that it's actually sometimes hard to keep count of. Political agendas, the way the government has been handling the virus, different things that have been set aside because of the virus and are very important. I don't know, the amount of hours a doctor works a day, 26-hour shifts, things like that.
Right.
I think that as Israelis, we have the ability to shout and say what we feel. And we didn't let the virus stop us. And so many different parties with their own agendas and ways of thinking and thoughts still went to the streets, stood 2 meters apart from each other, waved flags with masks, screamed and drums and whatever to say their opinion. And I remember, walking down the street or attending some of these or watching on TV. It's like, how are you able to go out in the streets and do that when there's a global pandemic? Well, it's still important. And it's amazing that it's important. Whatever is important still is important for people.
That's really interesting. I did not think of that before. So your point is, we have not in Israel allowed the pandemic to change the things that
to close our eyes,
the things we care about. Right.
Right.
In fact, it's many ways made us more
Yeah,
aware.
made more alert, exactly.
Right. I think
That's right.
it puts the light on the even more important stuff.
So we found ways, as only Israelis can find, to get our voices out there, even with all the rules and restrictions.
Right.
Yeah, basically.
That's really interesting. Okay. What do you have to say, Noam, about that?
I don't know.
What should we know? What do you want us to know in the diaspora that we might not understand about how Israel is doing today?
Well, I think I'll relate to it as a soldier. Basically, it's hard to be in this, in this frame. And I know some of my friends are serving in units that are basically, they are doing the test and they are, how do I say it? חלק מהחברים שלי הם בעצם אנשים שמתגברים את המשטרה ועוזרים למנוע את התחלואה של הקורונה.
So you're saying a big number of your friends, we may not be aware of how much the young people, the young soldiers are playing a role in helping mitigate the pandemic.
The army pretty much took control of distributing vaccines.
I don't think we do understand that. I think that's a really good point, Noam.
That people,
particularly young soldiers who are out
basically
there
walking down the streets, and some of them are handing down those brochures about the pandemic, and they make it accessible for people, that they can't really walk a lot, and they go to old people's homes, and then they vaccinate themselves, or maybe that they go on to different places in Israel, and then they make sure that people are not leaving their house, and then some people are turning against those soldiers. And people have to remember that, then again, we're 18 years old, and we're not 35 people with a badge on. We're like 18-year-old soldiers with our Madei Bet, and we're just walking down the streets and doing what we're told. And some people forget that there are people behind those uniforms, and some people are they hug the soldiers, they make sure that we have everything that we need. And for example, when we were in Nablus and during a very cold night, so there's this truck that came over to us, and then they gave us hot soup, okay, for everyone. In like 60
Wow.
people, they gave them a bowl of hot soup. And you see how people care about other people. People drove a lot from afar to our base, especially to our base, to give us this treat. So even when people are not allowed to do those kind of things, and then again we hug the population also hugs the soldiers a lot.
So what you're saying is Israelis, how they have come together around the army to help and support them, particularly during the pandemic, because they recognize what an important it is. The army that will save the country more than anybody else.
Because it's the people's army.
So Ronny said she's happy that she could keep her job and wasn't drafted into one of these new parts of the army that's up front fighting the virus. Are you saying that your particular group has been playing a role in pandemic
In our
control?
past training, like last April, last May, we were in training, and my friends basically marched in Bnei Brak, and they made sure no one leaves their homes, and then they handed down brochures about the virus because people didn't really know single they didn't know
Right.
a
I
lot of the
think Bnei
virus.
Brak, which has a high
Infection
ultra-Orthodox
rate, yeah,
population, they were not as aware of the virus and how dangerous it was. And
exactly.
so the soldiers were out there trying to educate the people about.
Yeah, trying to give access because they don't have phones. They have those kosher phones that are basically those old Nokias, right? That
Yes.
you can only call and text.
Right.
So, I mean, they literally handed down the information with brochures and made sure everyone can read those things, and I think I've seen some infos in Yiddish, the people that don't speak Yiddish.
Yes, right. I saw those too, flyers in Yiddish about the coronavirus,
Exactly.
so that people could understand. And that the army was producing many of these flyers to get
Yeah.
them out to people.
Because, we're basically cheap working force, I mean, a lot of
I think you guys should give yourself some credit. I think this has been such an interesting conversation for me because I don't even think I appreciated what a core role the IDF was playing in helping Israel deal with the pandemic and its effects. And we don't have that in Canada. And maybe it's part of the reason why we don't have our act together, it seems, as well as you do. It's not just cheap labor, but you're able to mobilize. There's a chain of command. You're all over the country, and you're effective. And I think the other thing is you have hearts of service. And what could be a greater service than saving the lives of your fellow citizens, right?
You say it like this, so yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to make you feel better about what you're doing. Any last thoughts? I thought this was a great conversation. I want to thank you guys so much for agreeing to do this. We should do it every year. Every year, update what's in your life and what's going on. But I want you to know we look at Israel from Canada, and we are so envious. I mean, I know that there have been some bumps along the road, that it has not been smooth. But when we're recording this video, the headlines are just incredible. The number of people that have been vaccinated, the help that the hospitals and the soldiers are giving, the commitment of people to serving and to taking the sacrifices, accepting the sacrifices that are necessary so you can get out of this mess sooner, I think makes me at least very, very proud of everything the Jewish state is doing. What do you guys want to say? Last words to us in Toronto.
We miss you guys, yeah.
We miss you too.
Want to come back.
Well, send me an extra vial of vaccine if you can find one.
You can
around,
trust us.
right?
You need two.
Okay, so send me both. If you tell them there's a rabbi in Toronto, he really needs one.
But desperately need that vaccine, yeah.
Sending you lots of love, and I hope you feel the support of all of Bet Tikva. We're so proud of you both and proud of Israel, and giving you nothing but encouragement in the work you're doing day to day. Even to you, Noam, who's fed up with carrying that thing on your back. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you.